You know what I think is crazy? We have been in this RV for over 100 days.
I know, it's wild.
I can't believe that we moved into this RV as full-timers without having spent a single night in an RV before.
Until it was in our driveway.
Oh my gosh.
And we camped in it the first night.
And we didn't know even how to plug it in. But
so crazy.
We have grown a ton since then, and we have learned even more. And tonight, we hope y'all will join us around the fire pit, because Sean and I are gonna share a his and a hers top 3 things that we have learned since becoming full-time RVers. Hey y'all, we are Sean and Christina, and this is our therapy dog Nash. We left our home in Nashville, Tennessee to travel the US in an RV and shine a bright spotlight on the incredible work that therapy dogs do across our country.
So the first thing that I want to start with, more of the his perspective, which I'm probably going to have some people laughing at me, hopefully not saying negative things, but we haven't boondocked yet. We haven't stayed in an overnight parking lot anywhere, and we just haven't done it. And we've had a few opportunities to, but to be very honest with you and a little vulnerable, we're kind of nervous, and particularly me, and just getting a good night's sleep and sitting in a parking lot, I can't imagine us doing that yet. And I just don't feel like we're experienced enough to where I feel comfortable doing it. So we've just paid, particularly like KOA, for overnight stops. We haven't done truck stops. We haven't done a rest area. And part of that too is our drive days aren't ridiculously crazy. We really try and max out at about 6 hours, just because of a travel trailer and wind gusts and trailer sway. It can be a little
white knuckles.
Yeah, white knuckles while driving.
So something that I have learned in these first 100 days is that less is truly more. We have really taken on a cozy, minimalistic approach. And
That's a good report.
Yeah, I love that. I actually got that from Instagram.
Yeah, I like that.
But we actually talked about that in one of our last videos that we will link to. But really, when you move into such a small space, truly having less really is important because of logistics. However, when I take a look at the way that we've been living and the things that we've had, I feel that we have let so much go in regards to stress of the upkeep of our stuff. And we didn't come from a home that was elaborately decorated or a giant home. We came from something that I would say was pretty average. We had a normal sized house with a normal amount of stuff, and we sold all of it almost to get here. And I look at what we have right now in our travel trailer, and I am blown away by the fact that we have not felt that we have gone without. So I will even go ahead to say is a lot of women have a lot of clothes and a lot of shoes.
I mean, I have a lot of polos.
I think Sean has more clothes than I do, but
Which
here
I
nor
haven't
there.
even been wearing since we moved in.
Yes, that is exactly what I want to talk about. There is still clothes in our closet that we haven't worn. And I just think living this lifestyle, it gives you such a good appreciation for having the things that you love and your favorite things and not having a lot of excess. And I really think that that's really something I've learned. Having less in there, it makes us feel more calm and more at peace, and it doesn't make us feel cluttered, because if you have been in an RV, you know it gets very messy very quickly.
Not a lot of room for stuff.
No, so at first I was like, let's put stuff on the countertops. No. That is prime real estate for stuff like groceries when you bring them in.
And then it's more to manage when you're doing a drive day.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other thing too, is like, without having a lot of stuff, you don't have to manage it. So we can spend time pouring into people and having relationships versus managing our stuff and either being anxious about it or just worrying about it or whatever the case is.
Yeah, it's been great. We definitely think that less is more.
The next thing that I would like to talk about is something that I've been fairly passionate about for the last, let's call it 6 months. And I read this book and it was amazing, and I'm gonna display the cover here. You can check it out, but it's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by an author named John Mark Comer. And it just changed my perspective in a lot of ways, but there was a lot of things that were in there that I kind of innately already knew were deep down in feelings that I had and that sort of thing. So it was great to just put definition to it through words. But it's interesting because it's actually played out in how we've lived full time. And it's this whole concept of constantly feeling hurried and constantly feeling anxious and just like you're moving 100 miles an hour, and super rushed. And just, I mean, you know what I'm talking about. It's just that feeling of just hustle and hurry. And that can lead to some negative things. It can lead to negative behaviors. It can lead to high stress levels, high anxiety. And as an entrepreneur, I already suffer from those things, so having that on top of it was pretty brutal. So where it relates to RVing though, is anytime that we are in a spot for less than 2 weeks, in my opinion, it feels very hurried and it feels very rushed, because what we're doing on the tour does take some time and some planning and relationship building and just some of those things. And we've stayed at a place for a week and we just felt restless the whole time and knew that we had to leave in a week, so we didn't really get settled and our minds were constantly racing, and it was a challenge. And granted, that's our experience because this is what we're doing full time as a part of this tour. So I think moving forward, well, we already know, I should say, that our ideal length of stay is about 2 to 3 weeks. I'm kind of more on the 3-week side. You're a little bit more on the 2-week side. But I think ideally, if we were doing this, or maybe I should say, when we do this in the future, where it's a full-time thing and it's maybe a little more travel related and relaxing and vacation-y, I kind of like the idea of doing a month even in a spot, which we have a little difference of opinion, but that's okay. And
I think everybody has a different opinion on
and
this,
that's why we're doing the his and hers,
talk
because like we both have different perspectives on this. And it just, you know, for us, it's really important that we don't feel hurried and anxious and rushed, and we want to be intentional about our relationships and spending time with people as we're meeting them out on this tour. And so it was just, for me, you know, something that was very translatable from what I read in this book to how we've applied it to full-time living.
Next up, something that I have learned very quickly was the importance of a routine and a schedule.
That's a good one.
I thrive on schedule. I used to be that girl in school that would write down to the minute what I would be doing.
That's an understatement.
I don't do that anymore. However, I do still love when I have structure around what my day is going to look like. Otherwise, I feel very stressed. And what I've noticed very quickly is that RVing, especially at beautiful parks like we're at right now, it's super social. Now, I love that. But there's always a time and a place for work and for being social. And unless you have the routine in place and your rhythm already created, it's really easy to become overwhelmed by everything going on around you, especially when you have FOMO, which me and Nash both have.
Yeah, Nash particularly. And that's cool because we didn't actually pre-rehearse what we were going to say. And I completely agree with what you're saying on that one. I think we're definitely aligned on that.
Yeah, so it's just so easy to let going to a campground quickly become a vacation. So whatever that looks like for you, whether that's waking up really early or working really late at night, just setting up those routines and those rhythms early on and just being really diligent about keeping to those, whatever that looks like for your family, and protecting that, because otherwise,
it can slip out of control pretty quickly.
It can.
We actually had a tough time with that here because this property is so beautiful, which if you haven't watched the review of Cabana Club, we're gonna link it here. Check it out. It's literally probably one of the best resorts in the country right now.
Yeah, but we've loved it. But yeah, it's just important to have those balances, as is anything in life.
Last, but definitely not least on my list, which I don't know how you're gonna feel about this one, but I could see us doing this for a long time.
Oh, I 100% agree.
Yeah, we've encountered people that have done this for 4 years, 5 years, with 5 kids. I mean,
ProHa family, we are looking at you.
We're talking to you. And we've just been super encouraged and inspired by that. And honestly, there's so many benefits to doing full-time RVing and things that just we didn't even think of when we started looking into this. And predominantly a lot of that's around the relationships and just how social this can be. But literally, I think we could go another couple years doing it. And I think there's some pros and cons with how we're doing it for sure. If we were doing it more long-term and like full-time for extended years at a time. And I think one of those is a travel trailer probably isn't the best option for that, because a fifth wheel is a little bit more stable when you're driving, gives you some more storage, it's just more ceiling height, it just feels a little bit more residential. That said, we love this travel trailer and it's gonna be amazing, and it already is amazing for this year, and we're so incredibly grateful for it. And it's been amazing. I can just see now, because before I didn't really know the difference between a travel trailer and a fifth wheel.
No, and when we were shopping around for our RV, we actually felt like a fifth wheel was way too much for us, way too early.
It was very intimidating.
So it was, and having a travel trailer, I remember we walked into this and we really felt at home, and we really felt that it was just the right amount of space.
Instantly we felt that.
For this season. And that's the best part is you talk, which I'm interrupting you a little bit, but RVs are a tool, and what we live in full time And some families choose to live in something really small, and they love it, and that's awesome.
Hashtag van life.
Hashtag van life. But for us, this is great for now, but when we have kids and down the road,
it'll change.
That's going to change.
Tool. Yeah, different tool in the tool belt.
When we want to go to a national park, we want something so much smaller. This wouldn't work.
Let me see. People do it all the time.
Yes.
I think for us and the way we travel and our stress level, I've seen some people and how tight they had to fit through stuff, and I just
by the
personally,
grace of God, it was a miracle.
Yeah, and I just don't have enough confidence in my ability yet to navigate that kind of thing. So anyways, the summary here is, who knows how long we're going to be doing this.
I hope forever. We have loved this. Last up on my list is something that I think we all struggle with, no matter who we are or where we live, and that's contentment.
That was a good one.
So I think this is something we always have to keep in check within our own lives, especially with the lovely social media throwing tons of different things at us. It's always good just to check your heart with that.
And I don't even have social media other than LinkedIn, and I still suffer from this a lot. I feel like this is definitely a weak area for me as well.
I think a lot of people, and I just think it was so interesting because we had wanted an RV for years.
A long time,
And then we finally got our RV, and it got delivered to us. And even when we were looking at it for the first time, I had one thing that I didn't like, and that there was a lot of brown, which we joke that now it's making a comeback in home decor.
Allegedly, we don't know trends, so maybe not.
But that was the one thing that I didn't like. And prior to that point, I had been looking on Instagram and at Pinterest at all these perfectly organized, gorgeous, decorative, renovated RVs. And then when we got our RV, ours didn't look like that.
Yeah, we were kind of comparing.
I definitely was playing the comparison game, and I noticed that it shifted something in my heart that I didn't want. And so I had to turn off social media for a little bit and really get to what was important going into this next season. And it wasn't a perfectly decorated RV kitchen. It was what we were doing and what we were going to be able to, who we were going to be able to love in this next season. Who we're meeting, and that was what was important. And so I really prayed about it, and I really just felt such a heart shift in the game of comparison. And now when I see those RVs, I still love them. Who doesn't? They're beautiful. But I really love our little RV that we're now getting to call home, and I appreciate it for what it's worth. And I'm not playing the comparison game, but I really do still appreciate to see those gorgeous photos.
Good boy, look at that bow tie. You're so cool. Okay. So what's one thing that you've learned since you've been in an RV now for 100 days?
Well, Dad.
Well, let's pick for him.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go first.
Are you picking one?
Yeah, I'll just pick one. So the long story short is Nash is definitely an outdoor dog, but like we don't leave him outdoors, but he loves,
look at him.
He loves the outdoors. And so when we had our house, he would sit in the garage more than he would sit inside. And we'd have a little gate up and the garage door would be up and he'd be watching it rain or watch people walk by or whatever the case was. He just loved being outside. And he's literally, I firmly believe, living his best life right now because he'll just chill out on the patio. He finds the shade, he lays there. Today it was, 85 degrees here in Florida, and he was outside almost all day, just sitting in the shade and hanging out on his little hammock. So I think that's why he's loved the most.
Outdoors. And I would 100% agree with that because it's so true.
Good boy.
But I also think,
good boy.
I also think that he has loved being social. He is just like his mama in regards to that.
That is the truth.
But he loves to meet new people and new dogs. And I actually think that once we got over the hump of adjusting to our new space, he has just really blossomed in meeting new people and making new friends.